What's up YouTube, and welcome to my channel. Thank you guys for clicking on this video. Today I want to jump right into it. I got nothing scripted, so I'm gonna just try to go off the top of my head. But I do want to talk about the two softwares that I'm using at the moment. And as you guys can see, I'm right here in my recording studio / living room at my house. And a lot of the records that I've been doing lately have been recorded here at home. And just before I jump into anything, one thing I gotta let you guys know: if you guys have been told, or anybody has told you guys, that you could only do a professional sounding record at a professional $1 million studio, I would be more than happy to disagree. But you can make a great professional sounding record from your living room, your basement, your bedroom, wherever it is that you're at. You can make a great sounding record with the new technology we have nowadays. Real quick, I want to jump into what two softwares I'm using. As you guys can see in the background now, I'm using Ableton Live, and I use Ableton Live when it comes down to beat production or making any type of hip hop beats. That's kind of what I love to do on my own time. And when it comes down to producing, I love Ableton Live. I've used Reason, I've used Logic, I've used GarageBand, I've used ProTools. They're all great softwares. There's nothing that's better or worse, but for my personal workflow, I love Ableton Live. Like, I've been having so much fun just chopping up samples, warping different samples, and just putting drum patterns in there. Ableton Live to me works really good for me. My first beat machine when I started making beats way back in like 2006 was an MPC 2000 XL. So when I started making beats, I just remember chopping up my samples, dropping my samples onto my pads, and just creating music like that. And at that time, it was just so fun for me. It wasn't even work. It wasn't that I had to do a song, or it was just fun for me, and I would do it just because I had fun doing it. And I had fun in the process of like just grabbing my sample, looking at the waveforms, and just scrolling, putting in a slice, scrolling, putting another slice, and just chopping up my sample and dropping them into my pads. And that's how I kind of started making beats. So throughout time, I got rid of my MPC, I sold my MPC, and I've tried out a few different softwares, which I've tried out Reason. It's an amazing software. I actually really like Reason, but I just don't like the editor when it comes down to your sequencer. I just could not get used to it, and it just gets a little hard for me to use my smart tools, and I don't know, I couldn't really find myself with it when it came down to quickness. I've also used Logic. Logic is an amazing software also, but again, when it came down to your editing window or your arrangement window, I don't know, it just couldn't really find myself very quick, just like slicing up, nudging over, using the slip mode versus the grid mode. Like, I don't know, I just could not find myself the way I do in Pro Tools. When I hopped on Ableton, I got stuck on Ableton, and I am in love with Ableton, and now I'm just kind of making beats in Ableton because I feel like it's extremely easy to use. Not only is it easy to use, but when I'm sampling, it works almost exactly as my MPC without having to use plugins. It has your simpler, it has your drum rack, which kind of works like my MPC. And I can use the warp markers. I can slice up my samples just right then and there, and I can drop any selection or any highlight that I do to my waveform. I can just drag that selection and drop it into a drum pad, and I can just start banging out beats like that. So for me, that was extremely fun and extremely easy to like just get a hold of. So I feel like Ableton is just a software where I clicked fast when it came down to producing beats. And not just because it works like my MPC, but also on my arrangement window or my sequencer. It's just so easy to just grab clips, move them over, nudge them over, slip them over without having to use your grid tool. Like, it just clicked for me. To me, I found like I can work a lot faster. Like I said, I think when it comes down to creativity and when you're producing music and you're making music, if you're making beats at home, you don't want to spend too much time on how do I click this, or how do I go that, or how do I move this, you know, that sometimes get in between our creativity when we just want to produce what we have in our head. And I feel like my way of production, Ableton, was very straight to the point. Personally, me, look, I've tried Reason, Ableton, Pro Tools, and Logic, and GarageBand. And out of all these 5 softwares, I feel like Ableton has been the easiest and the funnest software for me. Everybody might be a little different. Some people might disagree with me, but when it comes down to making beats, I'm in love with Ableton. As you guys can see, actually, I'll bring it over. I got my Axiom keyboard, which is just a 25 key. It's not no big old piano or anything like that. It's perfect for my home studio. It doesn't take up too much space. I'm not a musician, so I don't play keyboards like, you know, a crazy pianist. So this is perfect for me. It's got my drum pads. It looks really cool in my studio, and it's perfect for my desk. As you guys can see right behind me, this studio setup, or the desk that I have, it's not that big. So just having this right there, it just works flawlessly. The way I've been moving around a lot in Ableton lately is I'll drag in my sample or my song, and I can literally just select certain selections on my waveform or on my song, and I can just drag them down and throw them right into my drum rack, and I can just start pushing out my samples right off my keyboard. I don't know about making any sense, but I hope I'm making sense to you guys. Before I even get any further with softwares and programs and all that stuff, I just want to let you guys know, if you guys use GarageBand, Reason, there is no software that's like, oh, this is better or this is worse. In my opinion, it's just whatever you feel more comfortable with, whatever you feel like you can produce music without having to think about the technical side as much, that is your software, and that is the program you should stick with. Because at the end of the day, when it comes down to music, it's all about creativity and being able to translate your creativity to sound. And whatever software you're using at the moment, if you're using Fruity Loops and you're like, bro, I use Fruity Loops and I just love pushing out beats through there and it's super easy and fun for me, then stick with that. You know, use that and don't stop using it. Just learn it and give it your all, and try to learn as much as you can from that software and know it like the back of your hand. So whatever is in your head, you don't have to think about the technical side. You can just do it. Another program that I use a lot is Pro Tools, and Pro Tools is something I've been using from the beginning, ever since I started audio engineering or making beats. Pro Tools was my software and has always been and always will be my main production software for like engineering. I use Pro Tools when it comes down to recording sessions. I use Pro Tools when it comes down to editing a session. I use Pro Tools when it comes down to mixing. I use Pro Tools when it comes down to mastering. The only thing where I find it a little hard using Pro Tools is making a beat. Like if I'm alone, I just want to do my own thing and I want to make a beat. I've tried making beats in Pro Tools and they come out cool, I like them, but I don't feel as creative or as flexible as I do in Ableton when I'm using Pro Tools to produce a beat. Like honestly, with Ableton, I feel like I can just go to a coffee shop. I've taken my laptop before and I'll make a beat without no keyboard, without having to have, you know, like just my keypad or my keyboard on my, you know, numeric keypad right there. I'll push out beats, I'll put my samples there. So when it comes down to beat production, I stick with Ableton. And when it comes down to the technical side and I have to like engineer a session, it's more in the Pro Tools section. So that's kind of how I've been using both of them. When I make beats in Ableton, I'll make my beat in Ableton, but I won't mix it or I won't do too much editing to audio in Ableton. Mixing and editing audio in Ableton seems really easy and it seems really good. But like I said, for me to dive into the whole like mixing and editing in Ableton, I gotta just learn the whole entire different engine, and like I gotta dive into it. But why am I gonna do that when I'm already doing it extremely fast in Pro Tools? So what I've been doing, I just when I'm finished with a beat in Ableton, I'll just, you know, export all my tracks in individual audio tracks. I'll put that in its own folder in its desktop, and then in Pro Tools I'll import those audio files, and then I'll do editing, I'll chop up, I'll rearrange, I'll put drops, I'll put gaps in between the song, and I'll just kind of put a little more spices when I'm in Pro Tools, and then that's when I actually mix my song. Hopefully I'm making sense. If I'm not making sense, please let me know down in the comments. I just wanted to share with you guys a little bit of my workflow, how I've been making records here out of my apartment. And as you guys can see, I got some padding in my studio. I'll show you guys probably right now how I have my studio acoustically treated. It is not perfect. It's nowhere near being perfect, like treated, but I'm in a living room, and I make it work with what I have. I don't have $1 million here of gear, but whatever I do have, I do my best to make it sound my best. So if you guys got a setup similar to mine, or if you guys are also working from your living room or from your bedroom, let me know what you guys have going on. What software are you guys using? Are you guys using Ableton or Pro Tools? How do you guys use it? I'm pretty interested in knowing how other people are using it. I just kind of want to share this with you guys and let you guys know my workflow when it comes down to my software. I don't think any software you're using right now will make great music. And honestly, I think we're at a very good age if you guys are trying to open up your or actually build up a recording studio at home. If you're trying to make beats, or if you're actually just trying to build some in your actual bedroom, we live in an amazing age where it could be possible with a fraction of what it would cost back then. Just with like about $1,000, $1,500, you can have a very great professional sounding studio in your living room or in your bedroom. So yeah, guys, I just kind of want to share my thoughts and kind of talk to you guys about my setup. And if you guys got any questions, please let me know down in the comments, or let me know what you guys are using to create music. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you guys hit the thumbs up. I'll catch you guys on my next video.